The Aztecs were an advanced militaristic society who were able to amass a large empire in Mesoamerica through the conquest of their enemies. They were an extremely urban empire, and their capital city, Tenochtitlan, had a population of roughly 200,000 to 300,000 people when Hernan Cortez encountered it in 1519. Without knowledge of the wheel or beasts of burden like horses and oxen in Eurasia and Africa, the Aztecs were able to create vast cities and public works projects like the city of Tenochtitlan itself, which was built in Lake Texcoco in the Valley of Mexico. The Aztecs called themselves the Mexica, from which we get the name Mexico, and they were from a mythical land to the north named Aztlan. Their mythology tells us that Aztlan was a paradise in the north, and they were forced out because of a tyrannical king. The term Aztec means of Aztlan. They slowly migrated south and found work as mercenaries for a local king in the Valley of Mexico. Around 1250, they attempted to settle a permanent home at Chapultepec on the west side of Lake Texcoco. They were ousted by a stronger people called the Tepanecs and were forced to settle in barren land. There they tried to rise to power by making military alliances through marriage with other peoples. The king of another people called the Calhuacan agreed to have his daughter married into the Aztecs. They had orders to turn her into a goddess. Unknown to the king, when he married his daughter, the Mexica actually planned to sacrifice her. They believed by doing so, this princess would join the gods as a deity. And as the story goes, during a festival dinner, a priest came out wearing her filleted skin as part of the ritual. Upon seeing this, the king and the people of Calhuacan were horrified and expelled the Mexica. They were forced to flee, and in 1325 they went to a small island on the west side of Lake Texcoco. It is said that the Aztec god Huitzilopochtli instructed the Aztecs to found their city at the location where they saw an eagle on a cactus with a snake in its talons, which is currently on the Mexican flag. The Aztecs apparently saw this vision on a small island where Tenochtitlan was founded. When the power of the Tepanecs on Lake Texcoco started to decline, a civil war erupted, and the Mexica were able to ally with the city-state of Texcoco and Tlacopan, and with the Triple Alliance, they were able to gain control of the Texcoco region. From there, the Aztecs started to expand even further and controlled from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean in Mesoamerica. Conquered peoples were expected to provide labor for Aztec works projects, building their chinapas and sacred temples. As their empire grew and became more populated, they needed more food, and they started building artificial islands called chinapas, which were roughly 300 by 30 feet. They created acres and acres of these floating farms on their lakes, and were able to feed a population of millions. Conquered peoples also provided the Aztecs with textiles, impressive quantities of jewelry, military supplies, various foodstuffs, animal products, building materials, rubber balls, paper, and even more. This process was overseen by a local imperial tribute collector called a cacique, who then sent those collected tributary goods onto the capital at Tenochtitlan to feed its massive population. Aztec conquest brought conquered people's goods and labor into the empire, but it also brought something more precious, the blood of sacrificial victims. In their cyclical understanding of the world, the sun, central to all life and identified with their patron deity, Huitzilopochtli, tended to lose its energy in a constant battle against encroaching darkness. Thus, the Aztec world always hovered on the edge of catastrophe. To replenish its energy and thus postpone the descent into endless darkness, the sun required the life-giving energy found in the human blood. Because the gods had shed their blood ages ago in creating mankind, it was wholly proper for people to offer their own blood to nourish the gods in the present. The high calling of the Aztec state was to supply this blood, largely through its wars of expansion and from prisoners of war who were destined for sacrifice. The victims were those who have died for the god. The growth of the Aztec Empire therefore became the means for maintaining cosmic order and avoiding utter catastrophe. This ideology also shaped the techniques of Aztec warfare, which put a premium on capturing soldiers rather than killing the enemy. As the empire grew, priests and rulers became mutually dependent, and human sacrifices were carried out in the service of both politics and religion. Massive sacrificial rituals, together with the display of great wealth, served to impress enemies, allies, and subjects alike with the immense power of the Aztecs and their gods. When the Aztecs sacrificed people to Huitzilopochtli, the victim would be placed on a sacrificial stone. The priest would then cut through the abdomen with an obsidian or a flint blade. The heart would be torn out while it was still beating and held towards the sky in honor of the sun god. The body would then be pushed down the pyramid steps, where the Coyolxauhqui stone could be found. This stone recreated the story of Coyolxauhqui, Huitzilopochtli's sister, who was dismembered at the base of Snake Mountain, just as the sacrificial victims were. She attempted to kill her brother Huitzilopochtli while his mother was pregnant with him. He emerged, fully armed and ready to fight. He threw her off of Snake Mountain, and she broke to pieces at the bottom. The body of the sacrificial victims would be carried away and either cremated or given to the warrior responsible for the capture of the victim. He would either cut the body into pieces and send them to important people as offerings, or use the pieces for ritual cannibalism. The warrior would thus ascend one step in the hierarchy of Aztec social classes, a system that rewarded successful warriors. The militaristic spirit created by the veneration of these gods and rituals transformed the Aztecs from a semi-nomadic group that was barely getting by in barren land to a dominating, prosperous, wealthy empire that would dominate in the 1400s and into the 1500s until the arrival of Hernan Cortez and his conquistadors.